Hello there, dear viewers. Today I'm bringing you kind of a different video. Not the tutorials and random gameplays you might be used to, but a random video inspired by some stuff that went down recently. I had an argument with somebody about Six's elitism. They argued that Highlander and Sixes were equal in terms of competitive game modes, that me saying Sixes is a better format than Highlander is a form of elitism. Obviously he meant elitism in a negative way here, and it got me thinking. In the end, my argument with this person was not really related to elitism specifically, more towards the different skill sets involved in Sixes compared to Highlander. Regardless though, I found that this person and many others often mention Sixes elitism, so I thought to myself, why not? I will make a video about why I think Sixes elitism is such a stupid term to use. Remember that this video contains my personal opinion, but I'm going to try and convince all of you that it is the correct one. Alright, let's start out with the facts. So Highlander is a 9 vs 9 competitive format. It has a 1 class limit for every class in the game. This means that since there are 9 classes in Team Fortress 2, there is 1 of every class on the team. The Highlander meta is a strongly team dependent and player dependent meta, so I cannot really generalize it. However, it's often the case that the Pyro, the Medic, the Heavy, and the Demoman are part of the combo that pretty much stays together. In Sixes, there are 6 players on the team, as is the name, and there are different class limits. This creates large differences in how some classes are played. The standard Sixes meta consists of 2 Scouts, 2 Soldiers, 1 Demoman, and 1 Medic. The class limits themselves sometimes change. At the time of recording, it consists of 2 Scouts, 2 Soldiers, 1 Pyro, 1 Demoman, 1 Heavy, 1 Medic, 1 Engineer, 2 Spies, and 1 Sniper. Now that I have introduced both competitive formats, let's look at how competitive they both are. Highlander is much less recognized than Sixes. Classes get much less attention, and there are fewer LAN tournaments for Highlander. Compared to the Ice series, in which Sixes is the main format, Highlander really has no place in an international LAN tournament so far. That left me wondering, is Highlander just an underappreciated format because it is less well known, or is it really that inferior to the Sixes format when it comes to competitive Team Fortress 2? Well, we cannot make a conclusion simply on popularity alone, so what exactly makes a game competitive and an esport? Well, this is a very wide question, and I need to make an entirely separate video to cover that in detail. So let's just take some of the more important points and work with those. For a game to become an esport, it needs to fulfill, in my opinion, 3 primary goals. It needs to be good to cast, complex enough to have a high skill ceiling, and money. Of all of these, money is probably the most important. Now, let me just first apply all these 3 points to Sixes. First of all, Sixes needs to be good to cast. Well, I have to say that it actually is pretty good to cast. Since there are only 12 players in a quite standard 6 vs 6 game type, it's not too hard to keep up with individual player performance and to highlight plays when they're being made. So second of all, complexity. Although it can be argued that Sixes has a stale meta, as in the meta does not change over time at all, I feel that does not take away from the complexity. Be reminded that off-classes are run at last point defenses or stalemates. If you're not familiar, an off-class means that one player that normally plays a generalist class will switch to a specialist class to deal with the situation at hand. Sixes is a tug-of-war game type that relies heavily on medic uber advantages and ground control. This means that the game sometimes is very exciting to watch, and also it adds layers of complexity. Although it can be argued that the most popular game mode, 5 control points or 5 CP, has issues with stalemates. This doesn't change the core objective of Sixes itself though. Lastly, we come to the subject of money. We all know that TF2 isn't the largest esports around. This means that TF2 teams get a lot less sponsorship compared to popular esports like Overwatch, CSGO, Dota 2, League of Legends, and so on. However, Sixes has sponsors in the past, and pretty big ones at that. This means that although competitive Team Fortress 2 is in no way a profitable business, Sixes is capable of gaining sponsorship attention, and some monetary income for the pros involved. It's also notable that Sixes is competitive leagues, of which their highest levels have prizes which involve money. Although it's not much, it still means that there's at least some money involved with it. Now we come to the subject of Highlander. So let's just apply the same points, and at the same time contrast them a bit with sixes and see how we end up. Highlander is really a nightmare to cast. Like, trust me, I've seen it and I've tried it myself. There's a reason that 9 vs 9 is not a very popular player number among esports games in general. Now, it certainly isn't impossible to cast Highlander with the correct plugins and some help from production, but it is very, very difficult. There's one large difference that definitely makes Highlander inferior to sixes in terms of casting though. That is, the number of classes that are being played. In sixes, you will often only see 4, maybe 5 classes being played at one time. In Highlander, you will always see 9 classes being played. Because Team Fortress 2 is such a good class-based game, every class is a different specific function. This is especially the case in Highlander. Although this might be exciting for those who wish to play underappreciated sixes classes as their mains, such as Pyro, it doesn't change the fact that this is yet another nightmare for casters. We'll move on to complexity, because it involves the same problems that I've stated before, which also apply to casting. One of the biggest points I've seen brought up to defend Highlander as a competitive game mode is its complexity. Not only does it allow for all classes to play, so people from all mains can play Highlander, it also introduces class-based complexity. Since each of TF2's unique classes fulfill a different role, they can be used in conjunction to provide complexity in gameplay and teamwork. However good this may sound, there is an underlying assumption in this reasoning, a huge one at that the classes actually work together well. Highlander assumes that, because Valve creates the 9 classes to be playing together, that having one of each class makes a balanced and fun game. The problem is, however, that in most cases, this is certainly not the case. The problem you introduce by assigning roles to certain classes is that some classes will always be specialized. In TF2, this means that some classes are always superior to a specialist class in most scenarios. If you don't believe me, let me give you an example. The Spy is very, very good at picking individual classes and often trading 1-for-1 with them. However, the Spy is also very, very bad at area denial, generally just dealing damage, moving quickly from one location to the other, and participating in Ubers. Now take the Soldier. The roaming soldier, which has the gunboats equipped, easily scales large distances with rocket jumps. His rocket launcher deals massive damage, can easily deny areas such as choke points. He's also very good in participating in Uber fights because of his damage and mobility. Not only that, he's also good at picking off individual players by trading 1-for-1. Although the Spy is specialized in picking off players and is sometimes better at this than the Soldier, he becomes instantly useless in any other scenario. This means that although in Highlander you have per class complexity, half of your team will literally be useless in every scenario save a few, in which the specialist classes actually work. This means that Highlander is fundamentally unbalanced, since not every single class can fulfill their roles. This actually takes away from the complexity of the game. I still feel that complexity is Highlander's greatest argument though, as it can still hold in certain situations where specialist classes shine. However, since the argument doesn't hold in most cases, it can be easily seen that sixes is more complex, simply in its flexibility. Alright, so lastly, let's go over money. This is a pretty quick one, because it's a simple fact that Highlander teams do not, or barely get sponsored. There are also barely any prizes for leagues. UGC, the biggest TF2 league for Highlander, is a free-to-play league with only in-game medals as prizes. ETF2L mainly organizes Highlander as a stepping stone for new players to get into sixes. Again, no money involved here. Perhaps I will make a follow-up video explaining the fundamental problems with Highlander in more detail and contrasting them against some problems with sixes. But I still think that I sufficiently proved that Highlander is the inferior format in Team Fortress 2's current competitive scene. Finally, to define elitism, quote, catering to or associated with an elite class, its ideologies, or its institutions. To say that sixes is a better format for TF2 might be considered a form of elitism, but it is anything but negative. If something is specifically better in one scenario than something else, then considering the previous to actually be better is not wrong. It's not toxic or negative to do so. So please, stop saying you hate elitism when you yourself do not even know what you're talking about. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video, and please tell me in the comments whether you agree, disagree, or anything you think I might have missed out or I could talk about more. This is my first scripted video I've ever done, so if you don't really like this format, please also don't be afraid to tell me. Anyways, thank you for watching, and hit the like button if you like the video. If you dislike it, then hit the dislike button, and subscribe for more. Anyways, see you guys.